All right, so I've been fishing from my Old Town AutoPilot 120, a motorized kayak now for more than a year. And I was somebody who kind of came at kayaking, appreciated kayaking for the physical aspect of it. That is part of what attracted me to it. And I never really was all that deeply interested in a motorized kayak. However, when Old Town came out with the AutoPilot 120 and I saw the features built into that motor, I'm talking about spot lock, I'm talking about cruise control, and simultaneously with the advance of lithium battery technology and how cost effective those have become, it suddenly made the idea of a motorized kayak a lot more intriguing. So there's recently been in Kayak Angler magazine, there was sort of a clickbaity article on, is kayak fishing being ruined by motorized kayaks? And I am not one here to argue semantics. I don't think there's any sort of one definition of kayak fishing, and I don't really care if you think that there is, because it's just a tool to me, and I like catching fish. And the AutoPilot 120 might not fit all those sort of classic definitions of a kayak, but it has many of the features of a kayak. That is, it's a sit on top. So in fact, it's quite safe because you can take water over the bow and you can be in big waves, and it just drains through. I can car top it still. Yeah, and it's made out of plastic, HDPE plastic, so it's very durable, unlike a lot of other materials. So sure, it has a ton of features of the kayaks. That's some of the best features of kayaks, but it's not a kayak in the classic sense, and I don't really care if you think it is a micro skiff or a small boat, whatever you want to call it. I enjoy fishing from it, and like I said, it has many of those features of a kayak. So today I thought I'd go over sort of a Northwest perspective on how this kayak has changed how I fish and how it's changed in terms of my abilities to catch fish, and also some of the things that I don't like about it, some of the things I really love about it, and hopefully this helps inform you on deciding whether or not a motorized kayak is right for you. One of the major reasons I did not want to have an motorized kayak is that I didn't like the idea of having a limited range. And I'm the kind of person who goes out and spends very long days on the water. That's how I learn. It's just putting in that time, and I am a very patient and persistent angler, and that is the reason why I'm so successful. And the whole idea of not being able to stay out there all day if I wanted to was really problematic for me. But I've actually found with these 100 amp hour lithium batteries, yes, they are an investment, although you can get the Chins battery, which is a quality battery, for less than $400 now. I am getting 24, 26, 28 miles easily at troll speeds out of these batteries. That is a lot of trolling. So have there been times that I've been limited by my battery in terms of range? Absolutely, but that occasion is pretty infrequent. Most days I am done and I still have plenty left on my battery. But yes, you've got to make that investment in that lithium, because a silver lead acid battery is not going to give you those extreme ranges. It's a lot cheaper, it's a lot heavier, but that ability to install lithium batteries, 100 amp hour, 150 amp hour lithium batteries now, and they get cheaper by the day, into your kayak. And because some of these batteries are outfitted with Bluetooth capabilities, you can monitor the absolute health of your battery, how use of your battery is impacting the battery's longevity in real time, and that makes you able to adapt and be more informed, and also just be safer so that you don't get stuck in a situation where you end up a long way from the boat ramp without any battery. Now, one of the first things you're going to notice about motorized kayaks is they tend to be heavier. That is, kayaks designed specifically with motors in mind. They do tend to be heavier. This AutoPilot 120 is 125 pounds stripped down. That's sort of right on the edge of that weight limit where I wouldn't feel comfortable car topping it. And so if if you're going to upgrade to even bigger ones, then yeah, you have to consider how you're going to transport it and move that kayak around. But one of the advantages that a heavier kayak is, or at least a kayak designed to be motorized, is that you are no longer constrained. The engineers are no longer constrained by having to design something that's easy to pedal or paddle. They can actually design it more for comfort. And for me, just having all of this deck space makes it really nice. It's also much safer, and that is, I think, one of the things that I didn't anticipate as much. It's just that feeling of safety, of having a lot more stability, of having a lot more space, and being a lot drier, because this thing sits so much higher up off the water. Still has the advantage of scuppers, so if water drains through, it is a very dry, warm, and safe ride. This kayak, I will say, is almost impossible to flip unless you're like in extreme whitewater, or if you were dumb enough to take it in whitewater, or you were dumb enough to try and surf launch this thing, then yeah, you can probably flip it if you're trying to take it through ocean surf. But in most situations where I feel it's designed for and what's suited for, there is almost a 0% chance that you're going to flip this kayak, okay? Like, I've hung up the downrigger ball on heavy rocks and stuff, and it just gently moves the kayak that way a little bit. It doesn't rip the kayak off to the side. It's just that stable. It's so stable that unless it's like really extreme winter conditions, I generally don't even feel like I need to wear a dry suit. I mean, I don't wear a dry suit when I powerboat fish, and because odds of me going in the water are extremely small. Dry suits are not the most comfortable thing in the world. And in this kayak, unless it's extreme conditions and I just want that dry suit for added layering and warmth or protection from precipitation, I generally don't even feel like I need to wear a dry suit, even in the middle of the winter. I just feel that safe and secure in it. And that's the thing. It's opened up new opportunities for me because of that feeling of safety. I feel safer in it, so I'm willing to go out and fish in more extreme winter conditions than I normally would. I'm more willing to go out and fish at night in it because I have fitted this thing out with a lighting system, and I feel safer because I just don't, the margins of error are bigger, right? Like I can screw up in here and probably be okay in a lot of ways. I can reach too far one way. If I did, the things that I was doing in my older kayaks, or like my Salties or my old Hobie Revos, I'd be rolling those things all the time if the way I reach over from this thing and move around in this thing. So I just have that feeling of comfort and safety, and that's something that I really enjoy about having a motorized kayak. So let's talk about some of the opportunities that motorized kayaks have opened up in terms of fisheries for me, and also some of the opportunities that it's closed on me. Namely, because of the size of these kayaks and the difficulty, I think, in recovering like a kayak like the AutoPilot 120 in the surf, I don't really see this kayak as a surf punching kayak. It's got a saltwater ready motor in it, so it can handle Puget Sound. It can handle going out of Depot Bay and going out and hanging out over those reefs, in which the spot lock is absolutely amazing. Similarly, in Puget Sound, trolling for salmon or spot locking over reefs for lingcod, I have no problem recommending this kayak for that. But namely, some of the other features has really opened up opportunities for me. That is, the spot lock has made it possible to take advantage of anchor fisheries in the Columbia River and other Pacific Northwest rivers for things like sturgeon, for running wobblers for salmon, and for shad. Now, sure, you could go out in a paddle kayak or a pedal kayak and drop an anchor and do all that, but that is probably the most dangerous thing that you can do as a kayak angler, is drop hundreds of feet of anchor rope, because during recovery process you can get tangled up in it, and if it goes over the side and you go over the side, you're essentially tangled in an anchor. It's going to drag you under. Other boats, while they're pulling up their anchors, because of those Columbia River anchor systems where we use the buoy and the pulley system, when they move forward, if they catch your line, they could potentially pull or flip your kayak. With the spot lock, you don't have to worry about that. You can literally just go out in the middle of the Columbia River, just push a button, hold your spot, and catch king salmon on the wobbler. Similarly, I've done the same on the Willamette, where I just pull up, hit the button, spot locked for shad, and people are just blown away by the performance of this motor to hold me plus minus a few feet, and oftentimes it was less than that, especially in the current.
Crazy. How are you staying there?
The motor holds me in place. That has a GPS built in.
Nice. Love it.
It really held me right in position. And again, I think there's no problem with summer Chinook fisheries, fall Chinook fisheries, those flows on the Columbia. The motor can handle that. But also, sturgeon is a really big thing, because oftentimes sturgeon will occupy very deep holes of 100 feet deep or more throughout the Columbia, all the way up to the Canadian border, and anchoring in 100 feet of water in a kayak essentially is impossible. I mean, you can try and hover if you have a pedal kayak, you can try and hold in place, but you're at the mercy of the wind and current, and it's just not something you can do for a whole day or half day. With the spot lock on the AutoPilot, absolutely no problem doing that. Like, it boggles my mind how effective this thing is. You can even anchor up other kayaks, tie them up to a single AutoPilot, and allow everybody to fish that fishery. Now, also along the same lines of that, creating opportunity, is that because of all the abundance of deck space and because of the stability of this kayak, incorporating other fishing technologies such as downriggers is very easy to do, and because you're not having to pedal and you're not having to use your hands for anything, you can focus on using and deploying your downriggers or operating your fish finder a lot more than you would, say, if you were on a smaller, narrower kayak where you're having to pedal or paddle, where using things like a downrigger are a lot more challenging. Not impossible. I mean, I know many people who do, but it definitely adds another layer of complexity. I mean, heck, I have even been experimenting with installing a small compact propane heater on this kayak because it has that space, so I can, keep my hands warm, keep my body warm, and that's going to allow me to stay out longer during those colder days. And with fishing, like anything, the more effort you put into it, the more you get out of it. And there are many days when I am targeting wintertime kokanee on Lake Roosevelt, and it is barely above freezing. And the limiting factor is not how long can I stay out there in terms of energy-wise when I'm in a pedal kayak. It's always how long can I go till I'm just so cold that I can't tolerate being out there anymore. And by having a motorized kayak with a heater installed, I'll be able to extend those times, those hours on the water, and hopefully come away with more fish. Now, one of the unanticipated things that I've heard from other anglers that have upgraded from pedal or paddle kayaks to the AutoPilot 120 is that they come off the water not as fatigued, and this allows them to have more energy at the end of the day to do things like chores at home or go to work. And that's not something that I've personally experienced, but that's because I'm only thinking about it from my own perspective. If you think about, there are many different types of kayak anglers out there with varying degrees of fitness, different age spectrums, and we all have different physical capabilities. And a motorized kayak might open up opportunities for people who maybe don't have that higher degree of fitness because of age or because of some health-related issue. This still gives them that opportunity to get out on the water and enjoy long days out on the water and not have to worry about being fatigued and about pushing themselves physically, and also allowing themselves to have that energy when they get off the water to do the other things that we all need to do in life. I think this is why I push back against sort of that purist philosophy behind kayak angling, because for me, I'm just more interested in people getting out on the water and enjoying their time on the water and catching fish. And a kayak is just a tool to do that. Whether or not it's paddle, pedal, or motorized is of really little importance to me. That being said, I mean, if that's what makes you happy, is out there, that physical component of kayak fishing, then by all means go out and do it. But there's nothing about other people using motorized kayaks that actually stops you from enjoying what you do. So if you have an issue with it, it's a personal issue that you need to move past and overcome, and just let other people enjoy the sport how they want to. Now, I've had this kayak out for well over 1,000 hours on the motor and on the kayak itself, and I've had no major mechanical failures. Like, everything's worked fine. I've had no issues with corrosion despite taking it in the saltwater. It is a saltwater ready motor, as I mentioned before, and I've just rinsed it after I use it in the saltwater, and I've pulled the prop off every once in a while, and I just had zero corrosion on anywhere on the prop pins and on the shaft that it sits on. I've had no corrosion issues with the connectors because I use dielectric grease, as they recommend that you do. The one thing I have noticed is since I first got the kayak, the top speed in this kayak was around 4.1. Within the first few months, that top speed declined to around 3.8. So not a huge drop off, and it's sort of leveled off right there. And in my discussions with Old Town and their engineers, that has probably a lot to do with, the bottom of the hole gets scratched up from gravel and such, and from loading and offloading, and just increasing your drag a little bit on the bottom of the kayak. I've tried switching out to a newer motor just to see if it was a motor related issue, and it definitely was not. Like, the speed was just the same. My top speed was right around 3.8. So I think that, yeah, you'll get, for if you take care of the bottom of your kayak, but I'm the kind of guy who drags this kayak up and down gravel and stuff all the time. And that's probably cost me just a little bit on that top end speed, but it's not enough to really make me worried about it. And like I said, I haven't seen a continued decline in that top speed either, so I'm not too deeply concerned about it. Overall, the AutoPilot 120 I'm really happy with. In fact, it's become my preferred kayak. I still use the Old Town Salty 120 PDL to punch through the surf, or if I'm just looking to go out and pedal that day and have something simpler, that is still a great option for me. But the AutoPilot 120 has really opened up new opportunities for fishing, and I'm very excited by those opportunities. And I've just scratched the surface, and I can't wait to do more. So just stay tuned to my channel. Be sure to like and subscribe so you won't miss any of that future coming content. And I'll see you next time out on the water. And just remember, fish smarter, not harder. Bye, guys.